How do Anabaptists view the atonement? The theory of salvation through violence, suffering, and death does not seem to fit the Anabaptist lens.
You're right. What? Want me to go? All right. Yeah, the early Anabaptists, again, they didn't have time to sit down and think through this and theologize. So you'll find in the writings of the early Anabaptists, it's across the board. There's the penal substitution view, which is that the Father punished Jesus in our place so that we get off the hook. He vented his wrath, so he didn't have to vent his wrath against us. It's called penal substitution. You'll find some Anabaptists who held that view. Then you have just the regular substitution. He died in our place, but not as a way of diverting the Father's wrath from us. You find some who held more to like the moral example view, that he provides the model that we're to live by, and that's what causes us to be reconciled to God. But the dominant view among the early Anabaptists, and the view that I think most are gravitating towards today, would be the Christus Victor view. The problem that most Anabaptists have with the penal substitution view, and I think the majority of Anabaptists would agree with this. Maybe all of them, but it's the idea that the Father got mad at Jesus and had to vent his wrath violently on the Son in order to not vent his wrath violently on us. Well, it gives a picture of God that is not quite consistent with a God who is completely nonviolent, and it puts at the center of redemption a violent act. It's called the myth of redemptive violence, that violence solves problems. Here you have at the center of history the supreme act of violence. If the Father kills his Son to solve the problem, well, that reinforces the idea that violence is a solution. And one of the things that Anabaptists have been passionate about is that the problem with us is that we think that violence solves things. That's why we keep on doing it. Oh, if we just kill a few more, that will do it. And so the majority would be against penal substitution. And what I see right now is that there's a big kind of push among Anabaptists to embrace the Christus Victor model, which is that the supreme act of love that's demonstrated on the cross broke the powers of darkness and sets human beings free. The main thing that Jesus did when he died on the cross, called the Christus Victor view. It's Latin for Christ is victorious. 1 John 3:8 says that he came to destroy the devil and his works. Or Hebrews 2:14 says he came to destroy the one who has the power of death. That is the devil. And so that act of love was like a bomb that exploded in the kingdom of darkness and broke the powers of darkness and set human beings free and reconciled us to God. That would be the dominant view. Although I'll say one other thing, and that is that most people agree that you can't say everything that needs to be said about the atonement with one theory. I mean, God did a lot of things on the cross. That's why it's called the manifold wisdom of God, the multi-layered wisdom of God. And so I don't think anyone wants to say this is the only thing he did. The question is, what's the main thing he did? And I think there's a general tendency for Anabaptists to say it's a Christus Victor view, though they wouldn't hold it dogmatically.